Okay, we're on.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, so life's been very busy, so I haven't kind of done as much as I would have hoped, but we've done, I think last week I only got 2 sessions done, but the session that I recorded for Stitch went quite well yesterday. So yeah, no, Wednesday I did it. So yeah, keen to get your thoughts on how you think he's progressing.
So that's the one you
So
just sent me.
yes,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah. So I think he's going quite well on the Previcox. It definitely seems to have made a difference for him. So,
how long has he
um,
been on it?
um, 2 weeks, I think. I should have written it down,
Perfect.
shouldn't have I? think about 2 weeks. Yeah, yeah. And he's also losing a little bit of weight. I got told off by the vet for him being a bit chubby. So I've restricted. They normally have hay 24/7 in the paddock
Mm-hmm.
in a net. So I've taken that out, and now I just give them hay in little smaller nets for the daytime and a little bit more at night. So they're not, because he just constantly pigs out, and he was a bit chubby. So the
No,
vet
and
said because he's,
you can
oh
give them
sorry,
hay. You can give them hay almost 24/7. But what I do is I'll let them clean it up because when you really keep unlimited
mm,
hay out there, sometimes they'll get picky about the hay
mm,
and then they won't eat
mm-hmm,
it. And so I go,
yeah,
if they start to get picky, then I wait until they clean up the hay that I've given them and then I give them more. So they're not really
yeah,
without,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
kind of helps
yeah,
when they start to get picky about what hay you're giving them.
yeah, they do a little bit
Hmm.
like spoiled children. Yeah, so no, all's going well. And Pablo, just a brief update on him. So I had some front poly shoes put on him the other day.
Uh-huh.
So just because I thought I listened to your podcast around oh sorry, I can't remember the lady's name, but it was about the soul paint,
Oh,
Annie
yeah.
soul paint. Right.
Yes.
I was listening about that. Maybe it was after that. Anyway, I decided that yes, maybe he is a little bit sore on the feet. So yeah, had that done. I mean, it hasn't made for my eye anyway. I haven't noticed any difference how he walks in the paddock. He's still kind of tiptoes around, so maybe it's something else. But what I thought I'd do is the next online session that I have with Pablo with yourself, if you don't really see much difference whether they're on or off, I'll probably then just won't
Yeah.
continue because it was really just an experiment to see is this what it is or not.
Yep.
So anyway.
Nope. And I think that's a worthy experiment is to put them on for a little bit because all the shoes do, whether they're composite shoes, rubber shoes, steel shoes, is it just reinforces the hoof wall around the outside,
Yeah,
and it really just allows the sole to thicken. Like people think
yeah,
shoes
yeah.
take away from the sole, but it actually can take the pressure off the hoof so that the
Hmm.
sole can thicken up.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
that was
the
a really interesting podcast that you did with Annie talking about how yeah, I mean it makes sense now, but how the sole is the part of the foot that needs to be toughened so that they can walk around comfortably, which
yeah,
kind of makes sense now. Um, I don't think we can get that product in Australia. I have emailed Annie, and
there's
I think she was
about
gonna.
well, there's a whole lot of basically the premise is that the sole thickens, like you're in Western Australia where it's typically dry. So you don't have
Very
the
dry.
same
Yeah.
conditions. And so you're more likely to have horses successfully barefoot than in a place that
Mm,
has typically wet conditions. But you
yeah.
have a wet season. And so
Yes.
when you have a wet
And we've just come
season,
out of that.
yeah. And when you have a wet
Mm,
season, the horse's hooves are like a sponge. And so
mm,
they literally absorb water. And if the horse is on the forehand, then what happens is the sole gets very thin very fast because it's weight bearing and
yeah.
and it's just being eroded by the wet conditions. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's a lot of other things you can use, but I think you and I have even discussed not to use sole conditioners and to put anything on
Yes.
the
Don't.
feet that
Yeah.
dehydrates and disinfects.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And it
I
was,
mean, whether or not
sorry, go ahead.
we have such dry weather through, well, basically from now until it rains again, kind of April, May, it's generally
Yeah,
very dry. So maybe I don't need anything until winter time, as in like
probably
a
not. Yeah.
hoof drying thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe then come next winter if I can get if I don't continue having the poly shoes on him, um what I might do then is, and as we're going into next winter, then find a sole drying product
Hmm.
to paint on his feet and do that throughout winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it may be like, let's see how he responds to it, because with as challenged as Pablo's back and hindquarter is, we know he has too
Mm,
much weight on the front end. And so putting shoes on can be temporary as far as seasonal, and it can be
hmm.
temporary until he gets a little stronger in his back and hindquarter. But when I was in California and Colorado, we did shoes seasonally. So I wasn't opposed to
Yeah.
them, but I didn't need them all the time. And that was just, I was in
Hmm.
very different conditions. And moving to South
Yeah.
Florida was like, it was a big eye opener.
Yeah.
Like it would
Yeah, I
be the
bet.
equivalent of
Challenging.
your Queensland. Like,
Yeah, Queensland's very tropical
yeah,
and Darwin as well, in their wet season, very
yeah,
wet.
yeah. And so that's more the environment where it's more critical. And
Yes.
otherwise, if you have a horse you have in rehab and is a little bit compromised, then you can look at shoes or sole paint or some kind of hoof support for the sole just through the wet season.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of half predict that Pablo's issues are, or maybe it's his feet as well, but bigger than just his feet. So
They're
anyway, we shall see.
definitely, well, and that's always the case, is that the issues with hoof problems are typically bigger than just the hoof. And
Yes.
that's why my farrier and I have a 20-year relationship, is because we both understand that. And he fixes what is
Yeah.
his part, and I fix what is my part.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he
Makes
can't do,
sense.
like, sometimes he or the body workers can't do their job if the owner or the main rider is working against that aim. So that's what you're
Yes.
doing, is figuring out your part of it, to go, okay, I'm
Hmm.
doing this, this, and this. And then anything you add to it is either going to help your progress, it's either going to solidify some change he's making, or it's going to help you progress to the next level with less struggle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of how you
Yeah.
look at, that's how I look at supplements, body work, vet treatments. And I'm anxious to look at Stitch. I don't want to talk too much. Because since he's been on the Previcox, I want to see if that's made a difference with how well he can
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
So I've got him pulled up.
Look at your cat looking at you.
I know she won't leave me alone. She's like, this is my lap time. And it's Halloween, which is Black Cat season for the US.
Oh, perfect.
So she
Yeah.
has to make her appearance.
Oh, yes.
Because the thing I think with Stitch, and the reason I was so happy you were going to try the Previcox with him, is because, like we've talked about, his pelvis, his lumbar, like if we look at it skeletally, we know there's a kissing spine issue in there somewhere. And how he sort of locked the lumbar and pelvis and made it more unstable is why his hocks are so straight, and why I worry about the fetlock dropping and putting pressure on his suspensories. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So anything that would make him more comfortable, because arthritis is one of those things that you never really know where it is. Even
Mm.
though, when the vets come, they look at the feet up. But when we're working on rehab in training, we're looking at the back down. And,
Yes. Yeah.
some horses, the arthritic issue is in the spine itself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So his, like already I'm seeing as he's starting off just before he stopped, the first thing that caught my eye is that he's bending his hocks more. So let's
Yeah.
see
Okay. Yeah.
if that continues, because if the arthritis is in the hocks or somewhere in the hindquarter, then the reason he's stopping on a circle is when you make him use his hindquarter, he sort of says, no, not possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason that we haven't really pushed him on that issue and sort of let his behavior dictate the rate of doing circle work is because of that drop in the fetlock and the straightness through the hock. Like, I don't want to risk
Mm-hmm.
an injury trying to make him better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very funny. He goes, here I am at the camera.
Yeah. He thought it was pat time.
Yeah. But he looks as supple muscularly as I've ever seen him. He doesn't have that tightness like when he was biting and when I first met you
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
snarky. He
He
also,
was
when
like
I
a
looked
rock,
at,
wasn't he?
yeah, and he just had sort of lumps of muscle, but nothing was very organized. So he was holding
Mm-hmm.
himself together with muscular tension. And now what I
Yeah.
see is a tiny bit of fluidness coming into his movement. Like he's almost
Mm-hmm.
starting to find a bit of a rhythm with his neck long. His back is still not really helping him. And his
Mm-hmm.
hindquarter, like the hindquarter work is still, there's still a stiffness there and a little bit too much mobility through the fetlock, but he looks more comfortable than I've ever seen him. He doesn't look
Yeah.
like, the attention is on the work.
Yeah.
And have you
Yeah. He's getting a
found,
lot better at staying with me.
I was going to ask, because if,
Mm.
like, are you having to use the turns or the circles to get his attention, or is he just voluntarily kind of keeping his mind on the job a little bit better?
He's a lot better. He's a lot better at focusing on what we're doing.
Good. Because he just, like, my impression is the hind legs are bending more and he just looks more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the first impression. And even though he has his little wobbles here and there, this
Mm-hmm.
is definitely, I have to say, the best I've seen him move so far.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was quite forward as well for the whole session. I mean, he stops every now and again, but yeah, he was quite forward.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like. Like he's kind of finding a walk rhythm that he can maintain. And the
Mm-hmm.
stopping, when horses stop, it's always to me a red flag that says I'm uncomfortable somewhere. I don't know where,
Mm.
I don't know the details yet, but I do
Yeah.
know every horse that stops a lot, whether it's him or Pablo, um, and horses that race around and try to attack you, they're basically telling you this is too uncomfortable for me to do. And
Yeah. Yeah.
with all the progress you've made with Stitch, I've never seen him like even the loss of attention was him still telling us this isn't quite
Yeah.
right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
now I'm seeing like the ears half back or turned back with very little distraction. Like his mind is not going over the fence. Well, right then
Mm-hmm.
he makes a liar out of me, but
Oh, he does. Yeah, he does a little bit.
but not nearly what he was doing before.
No.
And
And
sort
I
of,
find now when we're walking up to the spooky end of the arena and he's kind of looking with his ears like that, and if I kind of just say, "Are you with me?" quite often he'll just like flick an ear back.
yeah,
Whereas previously I couldn't get that ear.
yes.
Like it just
And
wasn't happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
And because if you think of it as defensiveness tells us that there's something wrong, that
Mm,
there could be a systemic issue, there could be a musculoskeletal comfort issue, but something's going on.
mm-hmm.
When you're giving them a good deal and they're remaining distracted or defensive, that usually starts to tell me I need to do a little bit of sleuthing out physically. And I
Yeah.
think your idea of putting him on the Previcox was just great. Like, I think you nailed it
Mm,
because just that little bit of physical support I'm sure he has a multitude of arthritic issues. Like, I'm sure he just has a
yeah.
bunch.
Yeah.
And to do that, to get him comfortable in the work, now you're going to see bigger changes. And even
Yeah,
on
I
the
think so.
turns, he's not hesitating on the turns like he was. He's not shutting
Mm-hmm.
down. He's going a little faster, a little slower, but he's pretty close to a very consistent rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah. Yeah.
when you get rhythm coupled with a long neck, your hindquarters are working correctly.
Okay. That's good to know.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yep.
kind of the essence of it. And even though his neck
Yeah.
isn't low, you can definitely see the head is moving forward and away from the body. Like he's
Yeah.
lengthening the neck as best he can.
Yeah.
And
It was a lot better than it was the previous week because, or not week, the previous session, he was starting to kind of raise his head. Initially, when we first started, it was quite low and
mhm,
then it went quite high. So now it's kind of coming back down again, which is good.
yes. Yeah. And the use of the neck, like on a horse, it's a little bit funny because the skull and the neck are part of the axial skeleton, which you've heard me talk about endlessly. So it's
Hmm.
part of their balance to keep it stable and straight. But
Yep.
because horses' front legs are on the ground, they also use their head and neck sort of like an appendage. So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if we're
Like
on
a
a balance
counterbalance.
beam, yeah, we sort of
Yeah.
put our arms out as a way to kind of catch stability through our legs and our seat.
Yep.
And so the head going wildly up and down, really what that tells you is how fast or drastic the stability through the back and hindquarters is changing. And when you see the neck stabilize, like we're seeing in this video, what that reflects is that the back and the hindquarters are also more stable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So would you prefer his neck? What's the ideal position? Like a little bit lower and a little bit like longer, stretched out further. Is that right?
yeah, like when the back and hindquarters are really doing their job properly, the neck
Is
is
that like that?
long.
Oh, that's a
Well,
bit low.
no, that was
Yeah, sorry.
low. So there's long
Yep.
and low, and then there's a
Yep.
shortening of the neck. And so
Yep.
long and low,
I've really got to train my eye because you see things I'm thinking where. But
oh, where?
yeah,
Yeah. No, like just
got to just
there.
train my eye a bit better, I think.
Okay, so if we just watch his neck, just there, he's shortening it a little.
Yep.
Not much,
Yep. Yep.
right? But it's just on the upward
Mm-hmm.
direction. So it's either going
Mm-hmm.
up, down, in, or out. So if we just look at up,
Yes.
down, there it's
Yep.
still going upward a little, but
Yep.
not as
Yep.
drastic as when he was distracted. So that's an improvement,
Yes.
right? So
Yep.
when it goes upward, even a little, like in the subtle version that he's showing you now, it's a moment where his
Mm-hmm.
hindquarter and back are not making him feel stable,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So there he changes the direction of the neck. So a little
Mm-hmm.
bit up, there it goes up again. And the moment where
Mm-hmm.
he put his nose on the ground that you asked about was really the full release,
Yep.
but then he also lost control over his body weight. So right now what
Yeah,
he's
we're too
doing
far low.
is he's going a little up, a little low, a little up, a little low, which means that he's kind of figuring out how to use his core muscles, his back, his hindquarter, his pelvis to not only control the forward movement, but to also alleviate that job of the neck stabilizing the front end. So he's becoming more
Yeah,
stable in the hind end.
yeah.
And then on the
I'm trying to do
circle,
I'm trying to do a circle and he just turns around and looks at me like I can't do it.
but it's better because he didn't like it was easy enough to get him to go forward again.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this is the difference of what I would say the circle is hard, but not impossible. And before
Hmm.
it was looking a little impossible before because
Yeah. He'd
be,
just crab walk in and
y-
there was no circle at
yeah.
all. Yeah. We
So
could only do one like that.
when you go, like he was very forward, very rhythmic, mostly long through the neck. All of those are indicators that he's feeling really good with you behind him on the straight lines.
Hmm.
And so the only time you can go to circles before the body is really ready is when you have a horse that's highly distracted and a little bit flighty. And that's why I said
Right.
if you have extra energy, put him on a turn, put him on a circle, because the
Yeah.
energy will be useful because
Yeah.
if they're not stable on a circle, then they all lose forward. So if he gets
Yes.
excited, if he gets distracted, if he suddenly gets too forward, the circle is your best friend. It's going to slow him right
Yeah.
down. But
Hmm.
what he's doing around the fence line is just sort of nice, controlled, steady movement with some suppleness. Ideal.
Hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when you go to put him on a circle, if he loses forward, but he's not too hard to get going again, then don't give up on the circle too quick. You,
Okay.
yeah, because
Yeah.
your straight lines look really good. Like your straight lines look like his body is prepared to do circles. But
Yeah.
he's still going to tell you as soon as he feels a little extra work with the hindquarters, he's going to tell you he can't do it. And I'm
Yeah.
saying don't believe him 100%.
Okay.
Where,
All right.
yeah,
Yeah. It's because what I've been doing, the patterns, if you like. So I go around the outside and then one time round, I'll then do a bit of a serpentine. The second time round, I do a bit of a large figure eight. And then I think I fit in two funny little circles in the whole time we do
yeah.
it. So
And
maybe
it,
I should do a few more
well,
circles.
what the circles are going to do when he can finally work up to the point where he can stay forward while you stand still and do a perfect circle, what that
Hmm.
means is that you're maximizing the work of his hindquarter. And so
Mm.
that's why he would say to you, I can't do it, right? It's not
Yeah.
possible. So there's two different approaches. One, you can keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to find he just gradually maintains a circle with more and more
Sorry.
ease.
I'll just mute myself. My dogs are barking.
Oh, um, so any turn equals a circle. You don't have to be on a circle to get the benefit of the circle. If he
So
still,
do you mean even like going down on serpentines
yep,
and figure eights? That's still okay. Yep, still
yes.
helping.
Every single time you pull him off a straight line, you're challenging the engagement of the hindquarter. Yeah. So if you want to work up, like if he can stay forward and comfortable and rhythmic on lots of turns and more figure eights and fewer strides of actual straight lines, then that's the equivalent of a circle. And
Yeah.
then
Actually, I was
if you keep doing that, when you go to ask him for a circle,
yeah.
the tricky part is in his mind, he thinks he can't do it. So you might have to
Yeah,
push him for a couple of like, he might halt a lot at first, but if it's easy to
yep.
get him to go forward, you could stay on the circle.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I was going to ask you something about when I do ask, say I'm going on a serpentine or serpentine, and I'm turning him, what's the exact correct shape of his body? I'm not asking his head to come around too much. Am I bending the spine? Is it trying to keep everything in a line as possible?
Yes.
Does that make sense? So not kind of bending him with the inside rein too much to kind
Yes.
of turn. Okay.
Yes.
Does it
Exactly.
help when I'm going around, say I'm going around a serpentine, would it help that, say if I'm standing slightly on the inside and I pull the outside rein slightly so it brings the leg under? Does that, so I suppose it would be replicating what it would be standing still on the circle
Hmm.
and the outside rein kind of brings that outside leg in a bit. Is
Yes.
that,
And so
yeah,
that's
okay.
what you can do to build up to circles is if there's like two ways to do the turn. So the answer to your first question is whether a horse is, and this is kind of why it doesn't matter if we work with what the horse can give us, whether it's Pablo or Stitch. On
Hmm.
every potential path of travel, mechanically, the rotation of the spine, which is the sort of, you can think of the dorsal tips of the spine doing this in the horse, right? Which
Yep.
is what makes the barrel roll and what makes the pelvis tip. So on any
Hmm.
potential path of travel, the the spine should be upright, which
Hmm.
means no tilting, no twisting, and that's related to bending in that if we look for lateral bend and they can't do it correctly, because the definition of a correct lateral bend is a lateral
Yep.
bend while the spine also maintains uprightness.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't ask for any lateral bend in rehab, because I go any lateral bend makes it easier for him to rotate the spine. And
Mm. Yep.
so on every path of travel, whether it's a circle, a straight line, a turn, a bend, or whatever, if you're directly behind him or you're riding him, the barrel would never roll, the pelvis would never tilt, and the neck has no reason to bend whatsoever. And that's even
Okay.
true if we were talking canter pirouettes or cow working.
Yeah.
Like
So it's the legs that are going,
the
um,
legs move in and out,
yes.
right? The legs move
Yep.
in and out, but the head, neck, back,
Stay
and
straight.
pelvis remain
Yep.
straight. And I always think of
Hmm.
straightness in two dimensions. It's straight nose to tail, but it's also
Yep.
level. So
Yes.
we could think of
Yep.
levelness across the pole. If they have a neck issue, sometimes the pole is the issue. We can think level
Hmm.
across the pole, level across the withers, level across the barrel, level across the pelvis. All points of
Yep.
the body should be level left to right as well as straight.
Hmm.
So when you're
Yep.
behind him, if you don't go to the inside or the outside, that's what you're looking for on any degree of turn to make sure you're
Hmm.
still supporting the straightness. Now, if you go to the inside, like mimicking a circle, that's where things
Hmm.
change on the long
Hmm.
reins. That's the most confusing part of getting good at the long reins is that when you change your position from directly
Hmm.
behind to the inside, the way the reins affect his body are now different. So
Yeah.
we have totally different rules of how to work the long reins if you're on the inside or if you're directly behind. And that doesn't matter
Okay.
if you swing to the inside just for 1/16th of a circle, which equals a turn,
Hmm.
then the
Yep.
rules of the circle apply. And if you stay
Yes.
directly behind him, the rules of straightness and ground driving apply. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's where
Okay. Yeah.
it can kind of confuse the person because as soon as you switch your body position to one side of the horse, the way the long reins affect him physically, how they
Yeah.
affect his body is completely different than if you're directly behind him.
Yeah, and I can feel that when I'm
Hmm.
doing it. So if I'm when I'm directly behind him, I'm focusing on everything in him is straight
And level.
and level.
Hmm.
And then when I slightly come to the side, I suppose a little bit like this. See that?
Yes, and that I would still consider more behind him because you're to the
Oh, okay.
outside. You're to the outside, not the inside. So what you're doing
Ah,
is you're
I
kind
get you.
of, he's falling to the left and you're compensating perfectly by saying, come more to the right.
Ah, I get you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
right.
if you're
Yeah.
off to the
Rather
right,
than a on the serpentine, I would be on the inside, wouldn't I? So say if he was going left, and then we're going to do a serpentine to the left. I'm then standing in the left section.
yeah. So like what you
Maybe
just
next time I'll do
did,
one, I'll show you.
let me go
Yep.
back just a second
I suppose,
because
yeah, because that wasn't a serpentine, was it? I think I was changing direction, so I was just going across a diagonal. So that's probably a bad example.
well, it's a great example because it does involve you going off to one side, which is where the human gets confused, right? This is what I'm talking
Yep.
about because you're
Yeah.
changing direction, but do you see how your path of travel is a straight diagonal? He drifted
Yes.
left, and so you're trying to get
Yes.
him back in front of you.
Yes.
So that is the most straightforward way to understand the long reins. And what you did was
Yep.
perfect because you resisted his weight and his body falling left. You kept your path of
Yep.
travel and you kind of brought him back to the right. And so
Yes. Yep. Yep.
that's what I mean by ground driving being behind him, you feel, even if you're drifting a little left and right of the tail, you're kind of feeling it as a counterbalance to where he's falling.
Yeah.
Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so now if we were going to change that, which is what you can play with, because I think he's
Mm-hmm.
ready for you to play with this, and so are you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing turns and circles the way you've been doing them, I consider that still really ground driving. And so the
Yep.
same rules apply, straight and level, even if there's a little drift. And then
Yep.
what you have the option to do, because he's more rhythmic, because he's doing better, is right here where I pause the video.
Mm-hmm.
If you came, I might have to get out my diagram tools. If you
So I can see your
swung,
little mouse.
okay, if you swung here,
Yeah.
so here we go. If your body, if your center went from here to here, now you're in line with his hindquarters. You
Yep.
see how you have to make a big movement to get in line with his hindquarters here to here.
Yep.
You see
Yep.
that? If you
Yep.
did that, then now you're on the inside rein and his path of travel. Whoops, sorry, it's messy. But from here, you
Yep.
wouldn't have to go on a circle. You could sort of use the corner. I should probably
Yep.
erase part of that. Hang on. Let me erase all that. Um, if he were just going to do the corner the way you would do anyways,
Yep.
you could use this path of travel through the corner and go back on your straight line. But the second you change your position to here,
Yep.
now you're affecting his body differently. You're going to get
Yeah.
more hindquarter engagement through the corner that you would already be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that does.
so then your path of travel, you're going to do a big swing here, and then you're going to take little tiny steps, like little
Mm-hmm.
tiny steps here, here, and here, because he's on the outside of the circle and you're now on the inside. So he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be passing you, and you're
Yeah.
going to have to get all the way kind of to
Back behind him.
here. Once he hits the straight line, then you could swing in back behind him here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry,
So
my
it's like, I suppose, like you said, a 16th of a circle, which
yeah.
is what it is, isn't it? It's that same feel. Yeah.
And if you do your
And
corners this way, it becomes a quarter of the circle. So every time, like
yeah.
you have this short side and a long side. So on your short side, you have to be pretty quick, but on the long
Yeah.
side, you have more time. That as you're coming, just as his nose is about to enter the corner. So when his
Mm-hmm.
nose is coming into the corner, that's when you want to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah,
And
that
then
does.
that's where the rules change, but the rules change only from here to here.
Yeah. And are the rules that the outside rein gets a little bit longer so that they're both even?
The
And both
importance of,
even in oh sorry.
well, the importance of the rule change is that now your inside rein, which is right here, as soon as
Mm-hmm.
you reposition your body, your inside rein goes here, here,
Mm-hmm.
here, here.
Yeah.
So as he's coming through the corner, you're feeling the pressure on the inside rein. And
Mm-hmm.
so if he lightens, that's where you don't adjust the length. As soon as you reposition your body to the inside, you never adjust the length of the inside rein. That's where it has to
Okay.
become fixed. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if I have a fixed
Whether it's
rein,
loose or tight.
if it's loose or tight, that's him, not you.
Okay.
So
So
in a,
as I swing around, right, from where I
Mhm.
am to that first cross, do I lengthen the outside rein slightly because otherwise it'd be too tight, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
going to switch, so you have to give him a little space because you're moving your body. So
Yeah.
whatever length of rein, by the time you get in line with his hindquarters, like this is the
Yep.
alignment you're looking for. When you
Yep.
get here, that length of rein does
Yep.
not change until you get back
Okay.
to here.
Right. Okay.
So you can move with him, but this is why you're going to move slower than him. He's on the outside, he's on the
Yep.
circumference of the circle, and you're in the middle. So
Yes. Yep.
when as soon as you switch your body to be in line with the hindquarters or even the barrel, your inside
Mm-hmm.
rein no longer changes length.
Okay.
Wherever that rein length is, it stays. And
Yep.
so what you're feeling through the corner or whenever you're doing a circle is if he loosens the inside rein, you pull the
Yep.
outside rein. If the inside rein is tight, you keep the outside rein loose. It's just basically a lunge line once he's in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so if they fall in, if they put a lot of slack on the inside line while you're going through the corner, that's where you have to be prepared to bend them to the outside.
Yes. Yep.
Does that make
Which is
sense?
probably what he'll do. Yep.
Yes, because he falls in a lot and especially to the left. So
Yep.
if you swing your body over here in line with the hindquarters and you have your rein
Yep.
length now, let's say it's 15 feet,
Yep.
and as you're kind of staying on the inside of an elongated inside circle. He's on the
Hmm.
outside. As soon as he puts slack on that rein length all the way through here, you're going to pull the hindquarters towards you, which may take the
Yeah.
head to the outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what that will teach him is to actually, even if his head is to the outside, let me get rid of all these lines. Even if his head is to the outside, it's going to place the hind legs wider and it's going to make the pelvis level. That's what gives
Okay.
you engagement. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. And with the outside rein, um, not firm, taut enough so it actually, am I focusing on that it's bringing his inside leg in a little bit, or don't worry so much about that?
the use of the outside rein is determined 100% by what you feel on a consistent inside rein. This is, and this is like
Mm.
teaching you long distance on the long reins is a challenge. I'm having to really watch my words, and you're doing a great job. But this is what I mean by the rules change.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
if I have, like, let's say I'm here in line with the hindquarters, whether
Yep.
I'm doing a circle or the good news is whether I'm doing a circle or a corner or a turn doesn't matter. What matters is that I've changed my body alignment to his body,
Yep.
right? So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
behind, you're doing a great job. You're mastering that. Don't, I don't want to monkey with that. But if
Yep.
you're
Yep.
going to go to the inside, that's where the rules change. And you're going to
Yep.
move as quickly as you can to get to this point. And it's a moving
Yep.
target because he's still in motion. So
Yes. Yep.
even you just get here, right?
Yep.
Now, once you get here, your rein length is now fixed, whatever that
Yep.
is, on the inside
Mm-hmm.
rein.
And
So,
sorry, can I just ask a question?
uh-huh.
Would it or should it change? So my inside length that I have right there, would that be the same as I scoot around and get to the X pretty well?
Well,
Should it?
that's where the adjustment is. So that's why I'm saying
Okay.
you have to kind
Okay.
of adjust both reins
Yes.
on your path of travel from where you are to X.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there
Because
you're
I
gonna,
suppose it depends how far I go out, doesn't it? Because if yeah, okay, that makes
yes.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you just want to kind of keep the feel on the reins without letting them get too tight or too loose until you get to that alignment with the hindquarter. And you're going to
Yeah.
face it
Yep.
like square with your belly button, right? So,
On his hindquarters.
yeah, your
Yep.
body
Yep.
is facing right here on his
Yep.
body, right?
Yep.
So, once you get here, now you know the length of the inside rein.
Yes.
So once you get in that position, what I do is I just close my hand, in this case, on the left rein,
Yep.
wherever that is. That's what we're going to work
Hmm.
with, right?
Yep.
So then every step he takes, he's either going to pull on it or he's going to make it loose, right? So the next step, if he's now, if let's say his nose and the inside rein is here and you feel it loose, right? And
Hmm.
you've kind of moved with him, so you're maybe his nose is there, so you're maybe here, still in line with the hindquarter,
Yep.
right? Because this whole body is moving forward.
Yep.
So as soon as there's slack on the inside rein, that's when you have to pull the outside rein
Yes.
until
Yep.
it's straight,
Yep.
even if that gives him an outside bend.
Yes.
Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your
Yeah. Yeah.
so your objective, once you're, get all these out of the way.
That's not too hard to do that one. I find it hard when I do that, but he then just crab walks in.
And
That's
and so what you need is to use enough rein to keep the inside rein straight. But if he starts crab walking in, you're losing a little forward. So you could kind of
yes.
push him to
Okay.
go forward. But
Yep.
basically, once you
Yep.
swing your body in line with the hindquarter and you close your hand on that inside rein,
Hmm.
that's your length.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
Okay.
just going to feel once you have a static inside rein, the horse's balance is changing the tension, not you. That's why you have to
Okay.
not change the length.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make
Yep.
sense? Because
Yep.
he's either going to make it tighter or looser. And if he
Hmm.
makes it tighter, you just use it like a lunge line. You really keep the outside rein loose. You don't do anything. But if he makes it looser, that's when you pull the hindquarters towards you, even if it puts his head to the outside.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I
So
can do
that
that. That sounds
it
good.
might be really good for you to play with in every corner.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
And even going on the serpentines I could do as well, couldn't I?
You could. It's just when you're doing serpentines and shallow corners, sometimes you run out of like space or time.
Room to get there, I suppose. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
time to get there. Sorry. Yeah.
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 Time to
Yeah.
get there because you almost need, like from where you are right now, would be the perfect time to swing here. And then,
Yeah. I'll have to get my shuffle on, won't I?
yeah. And then his path of travel, he still has, oops, this much distance to get sort
Yeah.
of a quarter of a big circle.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I can do that.
Good.
Well, I shall attempt that, I should say.
See if the lines help. Let me get all my lines out of here and I'll hit play again. But that it's if you can kind of picture, somebody told me once if I could picture the geometry of my dressage test, I would nail it. And it's really true because when you kind of get
Yeah.
the geometry in your head, you get the feel,
Yeah.
you get the feel
Yeah.
of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, something else before I forget, and you'll probably see it as we get closer to the end of the video. You know how previously I said that he turns around and tries to, as if there's a fly right on the center of his back,
Mm,
but there's no fly. And then you mentioned that, well, that's probably something like it's could be tingling or pins and
mm-hmm,
needles or something from the changes. Well, it is
mm-hmm.
a really good demonstration of this at the end. He starts kicking his legs, he starts looking around at his back. So
Yeah,
there's
because
changes, something happening. So,
because the whole video, he looks like a different horse than the last video I saw of him, where he was a little distracted and you were dealing with a little anxiety.
mhm.
This is the first video I've seen with him on the long reins, other than maybe the first 2 weeks to a month when you started him on the long reins. He really
Yeah,
took to it well. And then he started to
yeah,
plateau a little bit. And
mm,
what I'm seeing now is he is all business. This is working for him
yeah,
again.
mhm,
And that's why I think you could play with moving to the inside and giving him different support. If you get confused or he stops and won't go forward easily, then just keep doing what you're doing because
yeah,
you're what you're currently doing behind him on the serpentines and the figure eights is still giving the hindquarters a good challenge. Like it's not nothing.
yeah,
Whenever you make a
yeah,
turn, it's going to challenge him however you support it. And what happens
yeah,
when you go to the inside is you're changing from the long reins when you're behind him are really resisting lateral bending, side bending of the spine. When
mhm.
you go to the inside, you're directly resisting rotation or twisting.
Yes,
So
yeah, and he's got a lot of that going on still, hasn't he?
he does, which is why that plus sort of the weakness of the hindquarter is probably why he doesn't want to do circles just yet. but he's getting there.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
even if you just switch to the inside for your corners 4 times on a lap, you're changing how you're influencing his skeleton. And that might
Yeah.
be, it might be very productive, even if you still
Yeah.
can't get him to do a circle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a starting point, isn't it? It's a little bit of a circle.
Yeah, because he's now pretty comfortable not bending so much. Like him with you
Yeah.
behind him, this is the most comfortable he's looked, and you've gotten him pretty stable. And the
Hmm.
fact that his mind is back on the work tells us we're back on track.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason if horses are escalating anxiety or if they're super spooky and distracted, I put them on the circle because it's so hard. It's a way to use
Yeah.
that energy up in a positive way. But
Yeah.
I don't see that. I think what he was doing before with the distraction was just telling you he still had enough pain that he couldn't really change. And I think the
Yeah.
Previcox has made a huge difference. And
Yeah.
if
I
he,
definitely think it was him in something internally for him. He was trying to disassociate or something because
yeah,
there was nothing there. Do you mean
yeah.
I mean, I know that, sometimes there's always a scary end of the arena, isn't there? But there was nothing there, and you'd just be looking into, you know,
Yeah, and
looking
I
for
think you
boogeymen that weren't
just
there.
hit the nail on the head. Disassociation is what they do when they're uncomfortable. They also
Yeah.
stop when they're uncomfortable. So the
Hmm.
disassociation or the little bit of like, chronic distraction, I go, it's really them telling us they don't feel comfortable. And the same when they won't go forward or they stop all the time. They're telling us that they're uncomfortable. It's not to the level of fear that they couldn't work through it, but it's definitely a
Hmm.
level that we go, maybe we need to look at ways that make them more comfortable."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, I think you really nailed it with the Previcox because especially
Yes.
after two
I
weeks
agree.
on it, and in even there, him hiking up his hind legs, I call that
This is where it
knocking.
starts.
Yeah. So that's what I call knocking the rust off the joints. That's him working through arthritis. That's him
Yeah. Okay.
feeling his joints again and the tail flagging a little bit, the hind legs hiking up, him sort of going like that exaggerated movement is actually a sign of healing. It's like the circulation's getting back in there. He's kind of feeling it. It's not yet
Yeah.
fluid and 100% comfortable, but he's kind of trying to get everything working again. So he's comfortable enough
Yeah.
to go, I just need, that oil can."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking, what is going on? I thought there was a big fly biting him underneath, but no, nothing.
No, and if he does that when you put the leg wraps on too, don't worry about it because again, it's sort of him when they hike their leg up that high, they're getting into the stifle in the hip joint. So
Right.
it's not
Which
the
is a good
worst
thing, is it?
thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. I might put those bandages back on then, or the boots.
Yeah. So is that clear enough on switching from behind to the
Yes.
inside? Because that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
your challenge with me is trying to teach you long reins from such a great distance through video because it's a
yeah.
tricky
I think,
technique to learn and you're
yeah.
doing amazingly well at it.
And I think the good thing about, being able to take video is I have a go, and then if it's not working, then we can reassess next time,
Yep.
and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, and you really like
Yes.
I want you to notice in this video I didn't make a single comment about your feel, your timing, your speed, nothing. You were perfect. And I didn't say anything, so I wanted to point out that I didn't say anything because at every moment that he struggled, You were right there with the right amount of feel, the right kind of correction. You're really getting good at this.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a lot more conscious of the reins,
Hmm. And it
the tension on the
shows.
reins.
And that's the thing with the long reins. The better you get, the faster he will change.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is kind of a steep learning curve, and your next hurdle is to really feel the difference of working on two reins when you're behind him to how it works when you line up with the hindquarters. It's it's almost a different exercise, even though we're still on the
Yeah,
long reins. It's a
yeah,
very
yeah.
different feel. It works very differently. But I
Yeah, and
think he's ready.
I had that feel for a very short time when we first attempted the circles, and
Hmm.
he actually, well, one of the videos, he actually went around, I don't know, maybe 3 times.
Hmm.
I don't, he must have thought, he must have did it, without kind of thinking he could stop. Now he says, no, I can't do that. But initially he did it 3 times, and I could feel it, what it feels like for that
Yes.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And the tricky part is when they stop a lot, that's the time that we lose the feel of the reins easiest.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
almost easier if they're bolting and running around. You can kind of get the feel of the reins a little easier than when they stop all the time.
Hmm.
But this is
Yeah.
fantastic. Whoop.
Yeah. He did well, didn't he?
Yeah. And I definitely, like right from the beginning, I can see the difference in his comfort level. Even though he's still got a few things to work out, he's just right off the bat, sort of paying attention internally and really giving it a
Yep.
go. And I like the feel you have on the reins. It's a little bit more feel than what you had before. They're not quite as loose, and he's working with it.
Hmm.
He's not fighting it, it's not slowing him down. He's sort of working with
Yep.
it.
Yep. And he's lost a little bit of weight, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah, he just looks different and different in a good
Mm.
way. He doesn't look
Yeah.
he doesn't look as tight and he doesn't look as
Mhm.
bulky. So I guess that, yeah, he could look like he lost weight. But to me, it's like a healthy horse. You can't really see muscle definition. And what I'm seeing with him
Yeah.
that might look like a weight loss is he doesn't have patches of muscles that you can see.
Isn't that funny what you just said? Because most people, like, not, I would have thought previously that muscle definition is a good thing, but it's not, is it? It's because they're then trying to hold their muscles tight to compensate for something.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
we think muscle definition is a good thing, but if you look at people who do bodybuilding and weightlifting and they have all these defined muscles, they're not the most graceful movers, are they?
No,
Like they can't
no.
dance, they can't do gymnastics, they can't do karate or martial arts. And so
Mm,
what the type of athletic ability we want in a horse is related to movement.
mm.
So if we look at
So we want
any
them to have a dancer's body, not a bodybuilder's body.
bingo,
Yeah.
yes, a dancer's body or a gymnast's body or a swimmer's body or, any of those sports that involve control over movement is the kind of body. And so on horses, what that looks like is a lack of muscle definition. And some people call them
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah.
Like in the racing
Yeah. Okay.
industry, in America, they want to see racehorses look like greyhounds. And I go, they're not
Yeah.
greyhounds. And they think
No.
a healthy, muscled horse is too fat. And I go, no, they have lots of power. So that lack of muscle
Yeah.
definition for a horse is a very healthy muscling.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know.
Yep.
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm so happy, Tracy. Well done.
Yes.
Well
Yes. Good,
done.
huh?
Yeah,
We're getting there. We're getting there.
you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. So there
Yeah.
you go.
So this will be kind of the
Yes.
next thing, and just
Pleased
send me
about
a
that.
video whenever you need to. Send me a video of making that switch,
Yep.
like, because it's really
Yep.
your body position. Once you decide, I'm
Hmm.
going from ground driving, you're just going to move
Yep.
into position with his hindquarters. And that's
Yep.
still a moving target,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
your idea is to have a straight line between your center and his hindquarter in motion.
Yes.
And then
Yep.
you
Yep.
know
Yep.
that's when you stop adjusting the inside rein,
Yep.
because whatever he gives you is how you're feeling that tilting motion.
Yeah. And by holding it steady, that's then balancing him out,
Yeah, well, it tells you what
helping
to
him
do.
balance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 So if
Yes.
you hold the rein at one length and it's suddenly really loose, what that's
Yeah.
telling you is his body is tilting towards you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so what you do is you pull the outside rein, even if it bends his front end away from you, you're
Yeah.
pulling the hindquarter towards you because he's
Hmm.
falling in. So you're taking him
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that
That
make
makes
sense?
sense.
Okay.
Yep.
I better let you
Okay.
go to work. I know we ran a little over.
That's all good.
Good.
Yes. Thank you so much. All
Good.
right. Lovely. Well, I'll see you
Excellent.
in a fortnight with Pablo.
Okay. Sounds
Cool.
good.
All right.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.